Throughout this series, we had gone over the various models of God. In this video, I'll be going over the final model of God, which is open theism. Open theism is perhaps one of the most misunderstood models of God. There is a lot of diversity with this view, but I shall go over the basic ideas behind it. First is that open theists accept all of the traditional divine attributes. However, they have a different view on the nature of God's omniscience. In open theism, God has complete knowledge of all possible futures, and all possible ways that one could or can make a free choice. However, God only has probabilistic knowledge of the types of free choices we would make. Probabilistic knowledge, in this context, has to do with the events which will most likely happen in the future. However, these events are not guaranteed to happen. As an analogy, I can have probabilistic knowledge that when I walk outside, no car is going to drive into my door. I have a 99% confidence that this will not happen, and that it is far more likely that when I walk outside, no car is going to hit me. However, I do not have 100% knowledge of this, because there is a small possibility that some maniac could drive straight into my front door, even if the chances are slim. Other open theists, however, take a different approach. They say that the reason that God cannot have full knowledge of the future is because there is no future for God to know about. If one holds to a presentist theory of time, then we could say that God cannot know the future because the future doesn't actually exist. And so God cannot have knowledge of something which doesn't even exist in the first place. Furthermore, these open theists would also say that it is simply impossible for God to know future free creatures' decisions. Another view of open theism is that God has more restricted knowledge of future events. So God does not have unrestricted knowledge of future events, but rather God chooses to not have full knowledge of future events. Finally, as it relates to God knowing what could happen, or what would happen, the open theists would deny that God has full counterfactual knowledge, since again, it is probabilistic about what could happen and not guaranteed. God has probabilistic knowledge of what could happen, but this knowledge is more limited. Open theism is very diverse in its approach to God's nature, and so are the many other views of God we went over in this series. Within each of the models of God, there are various modifications one can make. In classical theism, there is Thomism and Scotism. Neoclassical theists had different views on the role of God's relation to time. In panentheism, there is the Palmists, and there are various different perspectives within natural theology. So there is a lot of debate on these topics, and I hope that this series has been a helpful introduction to these models. And so this concludes the Theistic Taxonomy series.